Hi, I'm Avon Waters, pastelist. Today I'm going to do something very special that all of you should do. Destroy a painting. Destroy a painting. I'm going to show you how the destruction process actually is a fantastic way to improve your art. I will often use the destruction of a piece of work that I am actually working on currently, and from that destruction I will see ghosts, I will see images, I will see things that are left behind that I can build upon, and I usually end up with a better painting. But it's really difficult for beginners to destroy a painting. They become precious, they become, gosh, this is better than I've done before, and you don't want to backtrack. You don't want to try to, if I destroy this, can I bring it back? Can I make it better? Here's a method of destroying a painting that will get you started on the path to one day you can destroy something you're working on and have the confidence that I can rebuild this better. I can make it better. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a painting that's about 5 or 6 years old. Now this is a pastel and it's got glass on it, but I'll turn it so you can see it. It's not a good painting. But you see it's framed and it's matted. Well, 5, 6 years ago I thought it was a good painting. Well, as we grow as artists, there are paintings that we thought were good, and they probably were. They were part of our development. But you can take these older paintings and you can destroy them in a controlled way. And that controlled way is what I want to show you today. This is a second version of that painting. I don't know which one I painted first, but like Monet and Van Gogh, I work in series. If I paint one painting, it's not difficult for me to paint 4 or 5 of the same thing using different color palettes. So today we're going to destroy one of these in a controlled way, and you're going to learn how you can take an older painting, practice destroying things that you don't like anymore, and from those you will develop something that maybe from the ghosts and the images left behind, you'll build something that you really do like. So let's get started. Let me take a break for a second and show you how we get enamored with some of our art at the time, because quite frankly we progress and we don't know yet what we don't know. 5 years ago I created, or 4.5 or 5, I created a trifold brochure that I could put out at exhibits. There was an essay written by a young lady who is a curator at the Frick and Guggenheim Museum, and she wrote this essay on my work. This painting here was a great example of how I tried to work towards abstraction. The name of it is The Last Patch of Snow, a 12 by 12 pastel that was included in this brochure. I took that painting and I destroyed it because I wanted to rework it. But 5 years later, I decided, okay, I know enough now how to make this painting work better. Now, 5 years from now, what I show you could very well be painted over again if it doesn't sell. I took that painting and I destroyed it, but I destroyed it in a controlled manner. And it left some ghosts of what you saw there. And what I ended up with was something that had better uses of values. The values in this are much more controlled. The colors, while I'm a colorist and I like to use bright colors, I still was able to maintain that. But by destroying this in a controlled manner, I could use the ghost and come back in with my newfound knowledge. So if you want to develop, destruction is a very good way to do that. Okay, let's start the destruction process. There's many ways that we could destroy this and still be able to paint. Of course, we could tear it up, burn it up, whatever, but we want to paint over this using some of what was left in this after we destroy it in a controlled manner. We want to use what was left to create something new. And usually it's something better. Not always. So we will see what happens. That's the exciting part about this. When you decide you're going to destroy something, you get to see, and there's an anticipation of will this be better, or am I making a big mistake? In the beginning, you think you're making a mistake, but so many times it turns out the other way around. One of the ways that you could do this is you could put a little water on just a little dollar store sponge, and you could scrape. This is very controlled. You could scrape vertically or horizontally and remove things, deaden the color, and you see how these things, this color is moving around. You could do it that way. But this painting is so bad, folks, that I need to destroy more of it than just making some horizontal blending and changes. You see, it's just cut right down in the middle with the horizon, and there's other compositional problems that just make this have to be almost remade again. Another way is to brush on water. Another way is to squirt on water. This is alcohol, isopropyl, 70%. And if we spray these things, then we get controlled drips. If we decide to brush on alcohol, we can start moving some of these things around. Now you see, we're starting to get a little bit more destruction this way, but by moving things around, we get a totally different set of elements. We had two very similar sized trees. By moving this around once it's wetted, look at that. Now I have a large object of some sort, and I have a narrow object, and a third one over here somewhere in the back. I could raise up that line of horizon, or I could lower that line of horizon. You could also take this piece and you could spray it or brush on and go vertically and create different things out of the color that was there. Okay? So here you've seen how you can take some alcohol or water. Now water gives you more time. I used alcohol because I like the way it evaporates and it doesn't let me end up with just mud. Although I'm getting pretty close because I turned it sideways. But you can see that what's left behind are ghosts. Now the third way that I'm going to show you, there's many more because you can use any sort of liquid material in wet pastel techniques to destroy some. The third way is I take clear gesso. Now this doesn't look clear. If you've never used clear gesso comes and it looks milky, but it dries to a kind of a frosted finish. So you can still see through what's underneath, but it will dissolve the pigment the same as that alcohol did. Now the reason I'm going to use clear gesso, because this is a pretty good, I don't have a lot left. This destroyed that piece enough that I could follow some of these lines and create something new. So that's not the point of using the clear gesso for this one. 5 years ago, I had not developed my wet pastel techniques, and what I had been trying is to roll gesso on with a small roller. Well, what that did was it created a surface that was, if you've ever painted your own house and put extra paint on, you get this kind of eggshell or these uniform bumps as the roller rolls around, and the nap leaves slight hills and slight impressions and little depressions. And so this is very uniformly that way. So by using this clear gesso and my favorite, these little 89-cent chip brushes from the hardware, by using this, these little brush strokes are going to be in there, and every time I make one that's a curve this way or straight up and down or a curve this way, I'll have these little ridges instead of a uniform surface. And that's what I want to paint on here. So I'm going to go over this with a thin coat of this clear gesso, and I'm going to follow some of the lines that are here from the alcohol, and when it dries I'll still be able to see. That'll turn frosty but still clear, and I'll be able to see these things underneath. Now where I might have sky, I won't go vertical. I will make some swirls and irregular brush strokes, because that's going to allow me to go back in here and use that area as a sky or water or whatever. And I don't know yet which is going to be top or bottom, but I'm going to paint it this way, and then once it dries we'll see what happens. But you see, I'm going to go in here and there's a little intrusion there, but the other parts I'm going to follow this up and down motion here, and that gives me vertical areas of texture that are not uniform. And we wanted to move our horizon on this, so I'm going to lower this right down in here. I'm going to, the 1/3 mark, go across this, and we might use this as water for reflections. In water we have vertical movement and we have crossway ripples, so by putting a few strokes crossways and a few strokes vertical, it gives me a base to where I can come in later with dry pastel and create ripples and some reflection effects. And up in here we will create some base for some sort of greenery, some sort of landmass, but again we had that horizon in there, so whatever we do, we don't want to go back and end up with a horizon that goes straight across the middle. So this is the destruction process that is a little more complete than just spraying on a little water and letting it drip, and or rubbing it with our hands to create vertical and horizontal mixes of the pigment. Okay, so we're going to let this dry, and then after it's dry we'll come back in with some pigment and we'll see what lines we can see through this clear gesso with some of that pigment we moved around with the alcohol. Okay, I want to show you the texture. I'm going to let this, while it's still wet, reflect so you can see those brush strokes a little bit if you've got high enough definition on your YouTube video. But you can see how that's not uniform, and that's what I'm going after, as opposed to just a bunch of little bumps and nooks and crannies that rolling gesso on did for me 5 years ago. The more you work with wetting your pastels at the beginning, middle, and near the end, the more you'll see how different mediums, different wetting materials will react. And this is what I discovered only later, after using brush to apply instead of a roller. Okay, I've turned this over. After this is dried, I've turned this over. Remember, I had put brush strokes for what might be water down below. I've decided to do something. I remember a picture that was a nocturnal, and because this went so dark, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to create something that might be a nocturnal type setting. And I remember Arthur Wesley Dow, or Wesley Arthur Dow. He was an impressionist from the turn of the last century, and actually I think he was a very good art teacher, my understanding, but I believe that he also was the art instructor for Georgia O'Keeffe, and so his work in tonalism was well known. And I got a little piece of white paper there I want to get covered up. So I'm going to try to do something that is keeps this in the darker tones, so that I can maybe simplify this space because it went so dark. And we've got maybe something, a wedge of something in here, and the reflection of that tree into what will be water. And this is our 1/3 mark for the horizontals. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. I think I'm going to put a place setter in here of like a moon rise or moon set. This is, like I said, reminiscent of something that I saw that Dow had done as a tonalist piece. So using that sort of thinking, I may move this over. I may move this over into here to be behind the tree. So I'll put a little place setter there too, and that way I can move this around as I let this thing develop. Even as the moon is out there, I'll do a little bit of layering. I've only got 3 colors in here. I've got the orange, I've got the blue-green, and I've got the violet, and now I've got the red. So there's a 4th introduction to a 4th color. And I'm just trying to fill the space like I do in, I'm just trying to fill the space as I do in most of the pieces that I start. So these are just soft brayers, and because there's so much texture on this using wet pastel techniques, by using the soft brayers, my brayer is picking up that red violet and moving it into the blue violets and blending this really nice and filling in some of those skips and jumps that the rough texture is causing. And what this does is it allows me to get some base color down that I can build over the top, and I don't have to press as hard. I can just let the pastels go over those high spots and just catch, and let these blue violets and red violets show through underneath. And I'm not too concerned with any detail like so many people who start pastel paintings or oil paintings. They get caught up in trying to get too much detail too fast. And again, I don't know whether I'm going to use this moonrise or this moonrise. I'm kind of leaning towards this one to imagine. They're not there yet, but imagine some tree branches where this moonlight comes through. It would have down in here a few skips and jumps. So I don't know, I might just go that direction. I don't remember how Dowd did it, but we'll cover that one up. See how easy that is? It mixes in. It's orange, so we have blue and red violets, and orange is the opposite. It's just creating a gray, kind of a yellowish, orangish gray right there. I'll switch to a larger brayer. Again, these are print brayers, like speedball print brayers. This little one's not. I found that on the internet. A pastelist friend of mine found that, and she recommended that. So it's a great little brayer to move more detail around. It's a great little brayer to make marks too, if you were making grass in the foreground and wanted to make some marks. And we've got something off in the distance. That'll probably turn out to be something that is contrasting with this tree. Probably it'll be trees off in the distance, and they'll go a lot darker than this tree. This tree, because of the moonlight, I almost said sunlight, because of the moonlight, this tree will have a little bit more detail into it, and we'll see the branches before I'm done. Okay, now I've gotten some of the details in there. Those oranges, they're certainly not going to be left like that, but they become what I call place setters, meaning I can see just enough of them that I know that that's where I'm going to, that's my 1/3 mark to make it compositionally work. You see this bigger brayer compared to this one. This one gets the broader areas, and I've got a 4-inch one for bigger pieces. But typically at this stage, oh, there's a little brush hair. I pull those off sometimes. Sometimes they get to stay. So these bigger areas get to, on bigger pieces, the bigger brayers work really well. But you can see now we don't have those little dark spots that were, there's a few of them right in there, but the more we add color, the more we blend, and the more we layer in other colors as we define some of the details in this. Details being the sunlight, the branches of the trees, and the reflection, sunlight. There I went. I said sunlight, moonlight, and the branches of the trees that will go intrude into that moonrise or moonset. The reflection down in here, probably a few little ripples will catch just edges of light, and then the sky. But you could do this too if you wanted to, but you see that dispelled or dispersed that quite a bit. So that's basically how I get started on this, and the destruction process has begun. You can't even see what was in there before, but we use that line and some of these darks that were in there. Like this is a little dark area that was in that last painting, as is this area right in here. You notice The center line keeps wanting to creep down. I got to remember to keep it up. Okay, we've gotten a little bit more detail in here. Not done, but you can see how putting a light source behind there and just putting a few hints here and there that we can create the look of some sort of light source, and because it is in such nocturnal colors, people will the human eye will read this probably as nocturnal. And again, from Wesley Dowell, what I remember from his nocturnal, I'm hoping that this is not too good of a memory of his, therefore it would be mine and just influenced through, just like any other work of art, that we remember somebody else's treatment of something, and we are able to use that to build upon and make something of our own. So I'll have to look that up just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that my memory is not that good and that this will be different enough. And besides, his is a masterpiece and mine is a how-to video for folks trying to learn pastel and become better artists. So thanks everybody for following along with these short art tutorials. I hope you got something out of this, and if you did and you like these, please hit the subscribe button so you'll be able to find me easier next time you go onto YouTube. So until next time, happy painting